This is CBN News Watch.
Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Ephraim Graham. I want to begin this half hour with this. People with untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed during encounters with law enforcement. That's why some cities are now deploying mental health experts to help diffuse these interactions. Part of this report comes from Charlene Aaron, are disturbing, so viewer discretion is advised.
I don't have nothing but my baby. I don't know what to do.
This is body camera footage of Sonia Massey and police 16 hours before a gunshot ended her life on July 6th. The day before the deadly encounter in her home, Massey's mother, Donna, called 911 to report her daughter was having a mental health episode.
When's the last time you took your medicine? It's written down last night.
During her call, Donna Massey pleaded with police to not hurt her daughter. The next day, Sonia Massey called 911 to report a prowler. Officer Sean Grayson and his partner responded to the call. After searching outside, the officers entered the home, and the situation escalated. That's when Gracie shot Massey in the head, killing her. He faces multiple charges, including murder, and if convicted, faces a sentence of 45 years to life. Her death evokes painful memories and fear among some in the Black community.
A lot of people like that, like, oh, I feel safe when I'm around the police, or it's okay, the police are here. But sometimes for us, it's like we never know if we are actually safe.
Therapist Dr. Anita Phillips describes this as collective trauma, which can add to the distrust of police.
I had the opportunity to support a young Black woman who struggles with bipolar disorder, and she was experiencing a severe depressive episode, which had left her struggling with suicidal thoughts. I am on text, on the phone, supporting her, and suggested that maybe it might be bad enough that she needed to call 911. And her response was, as much as my suicidal thoughts are tormenting me right now, I'm probably safer if I don't.
Lisa Daly heads Treatment Advocacy Center, a nonprofit that advocates for those with severe mental illness. She points out the increase in people calling 988, the suicide and crisis hotline, since the new numbers launch in 2022.
There have been something like 10.8 million contacts with that system, which is a massive up, and that's been increasing over time.
According to Daly, police interaction with such callers often turn negative.
The likelihood of a person in a mental health crisis being involved in a fatal law enforcement encounter was 16 times higher than it was for people who were not involved in a mental health crisis at the time that they had a law enforcement interaction. So it is a pretty stunning statistic.
Treatment Advocacy Center also notes that many reaching out to police during a mental health crisis may be experiencing something called anosognosia, also called lack of insight. It's a biological condition that prevents a person from perceiving that they have a mental illness.
It's present in anywhere between about 40%, 50% of individuals that have schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And the important thing to keep in mind in the context of crisis calls is that if a person does not believe that they have an illness, they will respond differently to law enforcement. This particular population is extremely vulnerable when they're in an interaction with law enforcement.
To better understand the problem, Daly's organization has created a specific database to track what she calls preventable tragedies. Research also shows notable racial disparities when it comes to policing and mental health calls.
You do definitely see, there is an increased impact to communities of color for really any kind of law enforcement. A significant factor is like communities of color or marginalized communities may be less likely to get the timely interventions that they need. So they may be in a situation where they're in the community for longer periods of time, not being treated so that they escalate to crisis. And then once it gets to that crisis point, it's much more likely to result in a really negative outcome.
This, combined with the nation's overall mental health crisis, is leading more cities to enlist skilled health experts for assisting officers in the field. One example is the Support Team Assisted Response Program, also known as STAR, underway in Denver, Colorado. Instead of automatically sending police officers on each 911 call, any request related to mental health distress leads to the dispatch of a paramedic and licensed behavioral health clinician. something that could have meant a different outcome for Massey.
When they get that dispatch, they can go to the scene, trauma-informed care, medical assessment or triage, crisis intervention, de-escalation, transportation as needed, and then connection to different resources or follow-up care.
Despite being able to answer only half of the calls last year due to staffing issues, the program did respond to more than 7,000 calls. Results many believe are still worth expanding across the country. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
A leap of faith for Gold Star families coming up. We're going to show you how they're celebrating their fallen heroes thousands of feet in the air. Stay with us. You're watching CBN News Watch. Gold Star families who've lost loved ones in the military struggle with feelings of grief long after their loss. One unique program is helping them find hope, connection, and healing by taking a literal leap of faith. Brody Carter brings us that story from the skies above North Carolina.
I'm here to celebrate my son. 12 years ago, he died by suicide. I really want to do this. I'm a little scared, but I'm dealing with it. Hopefully, I'll be able to release a lot of things that I've been holding to.
For Gold Star families like Shelton Thornton from Louisiana, the pain of losing a child, parent, or a loved one who served our country can seem like an ever-present anchor dragging them down.
Any questions, any thoughts?
My son's right here with me.
That's right.
First Lieutenant David Wright.
You're going to take David flying with us today?
Yeah.
Operation Support Our Troops America, working with the help of the all-veteran group parachute team, taking skydivers 14,000 feet into the sky to help them find strength and courage to take the next step forward.
5,000 feet off the ground, there's a very different view of North Carolina. Now, today is not about the acceleration of a free fall, but today we are celebrating the Gold Star families who've lost loved ones, who are celebrating their heroes. And it's an opportunity to find hope, healing, and a new perspective on life.
Yes, my dad was in the Army, and in ROTC, he did everything that they allowed him to do except for jump out of the plane, so I'm doing this because he couldn't.
We get the incredible opportunity of providing moments of healing for these people. You know, the biggest thing is we've all been through dark periods of our life. God's not done with us. So I get the chance to be part of something so much bigger than life, that we get to be part of helping others heal from certain darkness and difficulties.
Families from as far as California come here to Rayford, North Carolina, in hope of moving forward.
I would say the easiest way to talk about it is that grief is something that you use. You're not possessed by it. We're trying to help set them free from the psychological traps that happen because of emotions like grief that feel like they've taken over our lives, but they really haven't.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Doug McKinley has partnered with Operation Support Our Troops America from the beginning, and he sees the leap of faith as transformational.
It was absolutely amazing. First day of the rest of my life.
Well, it doesn't help with the grief. It actually excites everything, but when we tie it to the message that we're trying to say to get them to let go of their fears, the metaphor is that you can literally physically let go and also psychologically let go.
Thank you for taking good care of us.
Absolutely.
It was amazing grace.
Deb Rickert started Operation Support Our Troops in 2003 by putting together care packages in her garage. When some of those soldiers didn't return home, she created the Leap of Faith event to support those families.
Having two sons that deployed repeatedly and did come home, you know, we feel, my husband and I feel like we have a debt of gratitude that we have to repay. Our hope with the 3 days that we have with these people is that this is going to change their life. This is going to kind of make them live intentionally, even though this horrible journey has been put upon them.
In addition to free falls, the 3-day retreat offers families help through seminars, professional counseling, and spending time in nature.
You don't like to sing now.
Such as equine therapy at Southern Eighth's Farm in Chesterfield, South Carolina.
Spencer, when he was little, he wrote lots of sayings, and one of the things he wrote was, "Who says you cannot touch the stars?" I just feel that I got a little closer to God by being up there.
Bart and Alexia Collard lost their 21-year-old son Spencer last year in an Osprey crash. He initially survived and went back in an attempt to save the trapped pilots. While he partially unbuckled their restraints, all three tragically lost their lives.
Out of horrible loss, it continues to bear fruit, and we're convinced that Spencer and Evan are just up in heaven, dangling those strings down, just laughing at us, making things happen, because it has not been dull ever since that crash for us.
Those who've experienced this grief understand it's a web that binds them, not just to the past, but to one another. Through shared stories and pain, Gold Star families can transform loss into love and find that even the heaviest burdens can be carried together. Their stories remind us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's facing it, one leap, one step at a time.
Pay it forward. If you see a soldier, walk up to them, shake their hand, thank you for your service. If you see a person that's non-military, or whether they are or not, say hey to them, because you never know what that person is going through that day. And you could change their lives.
It was absolutely amazing. It was epic. Thank you for that opportunity. My gosh.
Thank you.
Reporting in Rayford, North Carolina, Brody Carter, CBN News.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Brock Henderson is a game developer on a mission to show how gaming can be a positive force. He uses video games as a ministry tool and creative expression for parents and children. His goal is to develop projects that foster authentic conversations about faith and gaming.
When you hear the term mission field, what image comes to mind? Maybe you picture a place on the other side of the world. As I've grown up, my understanding of missions has expanded. I discovered that all of us are called to be missionaries to this world. When I tell people that games are an incredible missions field, they seem surprised, and that's understandable. I was in my 30s before I realized that my love for video games had uniquely prepared me to reach people with the same passions.
How did you first get into gaming?
Oh, well, I fell in love with games as a kid. And as a child of the 80s, I kind of grew up in arcades. And yeah, just fell in love with them. And from a young age, I knew it was what I wanted to do.
Nice. How can video games serve as a positive influence, you think?
Oh, that's a great question. Video games, I see them as an amazing vehicle to bring people into connection and community. So from a ministry standpoint, that's where kids are going to connect and just hang out. Even when they're not playing the game, they're there hanging out. So.
Help parents understand this in terms of using it as a ministry tool, if you will, because many parents always, chime in, get off the game. You're spending too much time there. How can we actually use it?
Well, I think it's a great way for parents to connect with their kids. When we look at the statistics, almost half the world games at this point. Over 3 billion people play games in some form. From a ministry standpoint, if the gospel is supposed to go to all the world, gaming actually represents a whole new digital continent where people are spending a bunch of time. And as parents, I would say that, there's all kinds of games out there that we can connect with our kids. Again, the multiplayer games, games like Lego, there's games like Super Monkey Ball that just came out this year, a new version of that. Satisfactory. There's a bunch of multiplayer games that are great ways to just spend time with your kids.
You're a lead developer in an upcoming game called Clayfire. What can you tell us about it?
Clayfire is in development right now. It's from the ministry Salvation Poem. It's going to be a beautiful hand-drawn 2D adventure game that kind of explores the gospel in a new way. And it's going to be free, and we're partnering with a bunch of ministries. It's going to come out in 2026.
What gave birth to this idea?
Our CEO of Salvation Poem, he grew up playing video games with his brothers, and he lost one of his brothers recently. And this is the kind of game that they would have loved playing together. So that's kind of the heart of it.
You mentioned a conference. Tell me more about that. When does it happen, and what happens there?
Yeah, the Christian Game Developers Conference happens every year. And in 2025, we are going to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and we're co-locating with Realm Makers, which is a Christian sci-fi and fantasy writers conference. And so we're co-locating our conferences, and then we're also going to put on this big expo open to the public. And we're trying to bring together artists and ministries and people up in art and entertainment and put on like almost a mini Comic-Con for Christian geeks and families.
We're going to be talking with educators, people that are preparing the next generation to step into the industry. So I invite you to come on this journey with me to explore the question, what does it mean to be a Christian in the games industry?
Coming up, he's a two-time Super Bowl champ, and now he is the running game coordinator for one of the most potent offenses in the league. Commanders coach Anthony Lynn opens up his playbook. Stay with us. You're watching CBN Newswatch. The Washington Commanders have one of the best rushing offenses in the league. The architect behind their ground attack, Coach Anthony Lynn. He is known for putting players in a position to succeed, and he told Tom Buring his faith in Christ helps him to do just that.
Anthony Lynn is an NFL sideline presence, an assistant coach with 9 different teams. The former head coach is now the current run game coordinator of the Washington Commanders, bringing traction to their rushing offense. The two-time Super Bowl champion running back is present in the moment, both graciously seasoned and stately intense. A fitting coaching fatherly ambassador in the nation's capital, steep with long football tradition.
What makes DC football with the Commanders unique?
Well, this fan base is special. I grew up in Dallas, and the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins, that's a rival. Back then it was big. We haven't had that here in a while. And so I've always respected the fan base here, and I've always respected the organization here. And I wanted to come and help a great man in Dan Quinn build something special here for the people.
Today's NFL running game, what's changing that?
There's different ways to run the football now. You're still running the ball, but I call them touches. You know, you have RPOs where they run pass options. Running backs have to have that versatility, that skill to receive. Short passes mainly. Catching balls in space. Extended runs is what I call them. Game, we just run it a little differently.
As a running game coordinator, when you have the elaborate part of a running quarterback like Jaden Daniels, how much does that overlap to what you are prepping for?
When you have a mobile quarterback like Jaden, and he loves to run, and I'm trying to get him not to run as much because he's so competitive, it makes the defense play 11 on 11. So you can gain some advantages in the run game because of that quarterback's mobility. Even if you're not using him, just the threat that he can do it. He's way ahead of his time. His maturity, his character. As good as he is a football player, I can tell you that right now, he's a better man. And that's what excites me the most.
Coach, speak to me, if you would, as a former running back coach, how much of life for us is running away from something or running towards something?
A lot of life. A lot. And I do believe that is the biggest challenge. Because if you're running away from something or if you're running towards something, then you're never in the present. And I believe you're at your best and you're the most powerful when you're in the present. Focus on that. You know, don't worry about the play you just had. Don't worry about the play that we're going to call. Worry about the play that's in front of us right now. And that's easier said than done.
How does coaching specifically satisfy your ability and interest to invest into others?
I had great coaches coming up. I was raised in a single-parent home, and a lot of coaches became like father figures to me. In middle school, high school, college, even on the pro level. I've always wanted them to be a coach and be able to give back and pay it forward. One day I will miss that, you know, and those meetings I have with young men. Besides the X's and O's, I love doing that, and I feel like I've been called to do that.
How much fathering do you actually import into the player?
You know, it's the old saying, players don't care what you know until they know that you care. And I believe that at the end of the day, it's a relationship business. If you treat people that way, I think they respond that way.
It really just cares about the people
around and the people in the organization. And he's been doing it for a very long time at the highest level as a player and as a coach. He's just really open and authentic on and off the field of just giving us fatherly advice. And I love him as a coach and as a man and as a mentor.
And the Lynn Family Foundation is about drawing the greatest potential out of people.
We want to just help some people, young adults with mental health issues, for fatherless boys, for motherless girls. And we have a school in Africa, in Tanzania. The cornerstone of our foundation is just service. We have been called to serve. We're not trying to fix you, and we just want to be with you. We just want to help you understand and recognize that you can be and do whatever you want to do. You know, chase those dreams in life. That's living. To me, that's living.
What do you think is most necessary in reaching someone's potential?
It's love. It's got to be. We're called to love because Christ loved us and he died for us so we may have eternal life. And he didn't have to do that, but he loved us so much that he did. For us to share that love with others, that's authentic and honest, and people see that and they trust you.
We hear this from a lot of your players. Coach puts us in the best position to succeed. That said, what do you think the body of Christ at large could do better to be the best of themselves in giving out?
How Christ loved us. And if the church loved communities the way Christ loved us, how can you not be attracted to that? How can you not want to be a part of that family? Big groups, small groups of just fellowship with one another and meditating on Christ's word. You took that seriously and you did that, Christ will show himself to you. He's never let me down. He's always shown himself to me. I believe he'll show himself to you.
What is it about the life of Jesus Christ that draws the best out of Anthony Lynn?
He's the same. He's always the same. And no matter what I do, there's consequences, but I know that he loves me. And I know that one day I will spend eternity with him. And that's always on my mind, no matter what I'm doing. Just knowing no matter how much I screw this up, he's going to be there with me.
Even until the end. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time. The address is cbnnews.com. Thank you for watching. Again, Happy New Year.